Welcome to Fort Worth, Texas. Welcome to the world's largest conference for podcasters by podcasters. Welcome to Podcast Movement 2015.
Hi, how's everybody doing? Good. Can you hear me? Is my mic on? Good. All right, here we go. Came out here with my purse like an old lady. I'm picking through my shit backstage. Let me just say, the last guy was the Disney guy. I am not the Disney guy. So if there are children in the room or people who are sensitive about language or their feelings or other bullshit I don't care about, now is your time to run. This is going to be a grown-up conversation. Which mic? Let's see how it goes. The first thing I want to say is I'm very, very excited to be here and to be keynoting this thing. So thank you guys for coming and listening. Have you been having a good conference so far? Hooray! I do a lot of public speaking. I talk for a living, but I've never keynoted anything. And so we're all going to see how this goes as a team, because I don't know what the fuck. I did write something, and I thought what I would start with is by telling you, and the title of my speech was Creating Authenticity by Embracing Risk, which I thought when I wrote it at like 3 o'clock in the morning yesterday sounded super fucking smart. We'll see if I actually deliver on that title. I wanted something that sounded like it could be like a white paper, somewhere dry. But I thought what I would do quickly is tell you my origin story for people who don't know my show or who don't know about me and who are super excited that Tyra Banks is up on stage right now. Or a very feminine LeBron James, however you get down. I'm not going to give you my whole origin story, just my podcast origin story, because what I will tell you right now is that I'm an autodidact, and that means I don't know what I'm doing, okay? Like most of you, I'm feeling my way through this. My podcast, Girl on Guy, started out as a television pitch. I wanted to do a talk show about stuff that traditionally guys love, that kind of stereotypically, it's stuff that I loved when I was growing up. Typically kind of people say, oh, that's guy stuff. I'm really into motorcycles and action movies and bourbon and video games and having sex without emotional connection. And so I wanted to do a show about the stuff I cared about. And we pitched it as a TV show, and everybody said, hey, no way, guys are never going to watch a show hosted by a girl, you're out of your mind. So I went away and I turned it into a podcast, and 15 million downloads later, they can suck a dick. But here's the thing. Here's the thing. That Disney guy is dying. I tell you that because I didn't go away and hire a team. I didn't join a podcast network. I didn't get a producer. I went online and I typed in how to make a podcast. That's how I started my show. That was 5 years ago. The device that I have up here is what I use to record my show to this day. I don't have a producer, I don't have an engineer, I record, I conform, I cut, edit, upload, maintain the website, all on my own, which I agree with you is fucking stupid. I agree. I'm an idiot. We can all stipulate to that as a team as well. The reason I tell you that story is because I want you to know that podcasting can seem mysterious and elaborate and complicated. It really isn't. It's just you trying to form a natural personal connection with the people that are listening to your show. And so that's what I want to talk about, is how to deepen that personal connection, how to get people to want to listen to you every week when the internet is literally a petri dish full of MRSA, and the MRSA, that's staph for all of you who don't spend a lot of time on Wikipedia, the virus in that petri dish are podcasts. There are so many podcasts. And so how do you make yours interesting? How do you make yours compelling? How do you get people to listen to it? Well, maybe the short answer is you don't. Maybe nobody listens to your show. We should all remember that just because you love podcasting doesn't mean people are going to find your show. You shouldn't be doing this. I might counteract everything everybody said at this point. You shouldn't be doing this because you think you're going to get rich. You shouldn't be doing this because you think you're going to get famous. The only ingredient you need to make a great podcast is passion. If you are passionate about your show, that is what will get you up at 2:30 in the morning to cut and post that shit when you really just want to sleep and tell everybody to go fuck themselves. And oh my God, stop complaining. This shit is free. Passion is really the only ingredient, because if you're excited about making the show, you will make the show, and you'll continue to make the show every week. You'll continue to stay engaged, and people who hear that engagement will be engaged with you. So let's talk about the concept that I came up with in the middle of the night when I was cutting my show. I'm furious. The concept of creating authenticity by embracing risk. For the people out there who have not listened to Girl on Guy is an interview show. It's an arts and culture podcast where I interview lots of different people: comedians, artists, actors, writers, chefs, athletes, my dad. And it's a show about how people become the artists, the iconoclast that they are today. And I wanted to tell a story about how you can see somebody who's famous and they seem as if they fell from the sky, fully formed and perfect, like a Chris Rock, or I don't know, a Tom Morello from Rage Against the Machine, or LL Cool J. He was just on my show. Oh my God, you guys. Super exciting, Stingling maybe. And they seem magically perfect, but the essence of my show is about talking about failure and how success is not the absence of failure, but persistence through failure. And if you can take that one thing away with you today, that success is not the absence of failure. Success is constant, ongoing persistence through failure. I think that's the most instructive thing that I've used in my entire life, including making this podcast, because when I set out, it was not very good, and nobody was listening to it. I mean, it did fine, for a podcast, but I didn't set out because I thought I'm going to get 1 million downloads right away, I'm going to make $1 million. I was like, hey, it would be super cool to stalk the shit out of Henry Rollins and get him to sit down with me and talk about punk rock. That's why I started making a show. I was like, wouldn't it be great to trap people I admire in a room alone and stare at them until they tell me their secrets? That's why I make Girl on Guy. That is the only reason I make Girl on Guy, because for most of its life, it's been a pretty thankless job. Because I have no staff, and I have to get that show every week, and people are on Twitter complaining that the show's not up on time, to which I tweet back, I have 80 fucking jobs, why don't you do it? Here's the thing. I do it because I love it. Early on in my show, I didn't know what it was going to be. I just wanted to make a podcast. And I didn't know anything about podcasting. I had been the guest on 2 other people's podcasts. One was Adam Carolla. One was The Nerdist with Chris Hardwick. I did those shows, and they seemed super fun. And quite honestly, not that hard. I don't know if you've listened to either of those shows. They're not making science. They're friends of mine. They can take it. They're just shooting the shit with their friends, and I thought that would be really cool. But here's the thing, every podcast is a show with people shooting the shit with their friends. So why do we give a shit about you and your friends and your shit? We don't. I think we look at these guys and we think, hey, Nerdist just sits around and they talk about farting. I can do that. Well, sure, you can do that, but you're not the Nerdist. And honestly, I'm not the Nerdist. So I was trying to find a way to unlock something very specific, not just for my listeners, but for me. What was going to get me super stoked to make Girl on Guy every week? I didn't know what that was in the beginning. And that was a real journey for me, trying to figure out what was going to make my show singular and unique and special. What was going to make my show a show that I wanted to make every week? I encourage you not to try to figure out what you think your audience wants. Who cares what they want? They're getting your show for free. Make the show, seriously, it's free. Make the show that you want to make, and be relentless in the pursuit of doing something that delights you. If you do that, those people will find you. I don't know if you can tell, but I'm a 6-foot-tall black woman, and I sound like I grew up in fucking Full House. And so I've always been on the outside. I'm 6 foot tall. I've been this tall since preschool. All right, during Black History Month, I was the exhibit. I was the only black kid in my school. They were like, here we have the Negro in her natural habitat. She's going to tell us all about her people. Then we're going to touch her hair. And so I've always been an outsider. And I think one of the interesting things about being an outsider is that you very quickly learn that you cannot figure out how to please everybody else. And so you may as well please yourself. When I first started doing comedy, thank you, one person. When I first started doing comedy and I got up on stage, people really expected something very different to come out of my mouth. They expected me to do something they'd seen potentially on a Def Comedy Jam or BET's Comic View. The people that do that kind of comedy are brilliant at what they do. They're amazing. I wish I was like them. I'm not like them. I couldn't fake it. So I just did the shit that I wanted to do, and my tribe found me. That is how I run my podcast. I made the show I wanted to make, and eventually my tribe found me. That is what is so great about podcasting, because this is a narrow cast world. Your tribe will find you if you create something that is specific and personal and robust and exciting. So how do you do that? We talked a little bit about making something that you feel personally compelling. If you make a show that you're stoked to make, other people will feel that energy when they listen to the show, and they'll get excited about it. And even if those people are your mom and your girlfriend's boyfriend, might be the only people, by the way, your girlfriend probably has a boyfriend. Make sure that the show is exciting to them. Because if the show is exciting to you, the show will be exciting to them, and that's the only real hook you have. You're trying to create a singular experience for your listeners. So something that's specific and unique to you will be specific and unique to your audience and be very exciting. Here's the second thing I want to say. The more you give of yourself, the more your listeners will connect. Now, not everybody is a great interviewer, but podcasting is not journalism. It's not. It's something different. I don't really know what it is. Like, people will sometimes write in and go, "You talk too much during your show." To which I write, "It's my fucking show." That's the end of that conversation. When you make a show, feel free to be mute for the entire hour. I'm sure it will be scintillating. But it's my show. And I wanted my show to be a conversation. I wanted it to feel different. I didn't want it to be an interview. I get interviewed all the time. And one thing I really hate when I'm being interviewed is when someone picks up their thing and goes, "Well, I understand you're from San Francisco and your favorite color is purple. Your husband's name is Jeffrey. You homebrewed once. You've got an ingrown toenail." Why am I here? Feel free to do the interview without me. I wanted to create a show where I learned something about the person that was sitting across from me, and so my audience learned something about them, and I wanted to give them the most, maybe I couldn't do the most in the kind of architectural objective sense, but the most singular interview that I could deliver. So I sit down and I try to put this person at ease. My show's an interview show. Your show may not be an interview show. Maybe you do a show where you eat cookies. By the way, there are several shows where people just eat cookies. Not one, several. I wanted my guests to feel comfortable, and I wanted them to tell me things. And so what I did was I told them things. That's how I got them to relax. I thought, I'm not going to sit here behind a notebook and a pad and be imperious and self-satisfied and try to unlock you. I'm going to unlock a little bit of myself, and hopefully you'll feel comfortable enough to walk out on this tightrope with me. That's worked very well for me. I do interview shows. I will say the one thing that I do that you probably won't be able to do is that I do a show where my guest can't bring anybody with them. There are no publicists or handlers or agents or managers in the room. It's just me and them. And that's because I slowly wear them down until they break apart into little tiny pieces and tell me their secrets. And that's hard to do when a publicist is standing across the room. You probably won't be able to engineer that, but you can create an environment of safety for your guest. And that's what I do. I tell them right at the beginning, this is a safe place. I want you to speak freely. It's for the internet. Feel free to use every curse word you've ever heard in your entire life. Or not, because I will for you if you don't want to. And also, if you say something that later you regret, I'll take it out of the show because I'm not here to get you. I want you to speak as freely as you possibly can. And I can tell you, in 235 episodes, only one person has asked me to cut something out of the show. And that's because they feel comfortable. The other thing that I get from people that I'm really excited about on my show is people say, "I've never told this story before," or "I can't believe I'm telling you this." And that's because I work really hard to make people feel at home and at ease. And that ease hopefully translates to people when they listen in their cars or at their desks or while they're masturbating. I have that effect on people. The third thing I want to tell you guys is, and I don't know, I'm probably repeating everything that the last guy said, so, I totally was cribbing back there. But the third thing that I want to say to you is don't be afraid to pivot. I think a lot of times you come up with a great idea for your show. This is going to be awesome. I'm going to do a show about adorable skunks, and then there's only like 3 in the world, and then where are you? That's 3 episodes. So my show kind of started out being a little bit more of a standard interview show, and then I slowly figured out that what people love to hear were people's, like the unheard, the unspoken part of people's origin stories. And because I wanted to talk about success and failure, I created a segment in my show called Self-Inflicted Wounds. And for those of you who know, at the end of every show, who don't know, at the end of every show, my guest tells a story about something that's gone wrong in their life that's their own fault. So it can't be like the man did it to you, or your parents did it to you, or your girl did it to you. It has to be something you did to yourself. And it's a great way to show people listening, and also to show the person who's telling the story, that they're human, that everybody fails, that everybody makes stupid mistakes. I'll tell you one, it's a really great one. No one has beaten it yet. Chris Rock, ooh, this is so filthy. Chris Rock told a story about dating a girl, and he got the clap. And then, this is in my show. It's not like I'm not putting him on blast. Well, I am putting him on blast, but he put himself on blast first. And so instead of just going to the girl and saying, "Hey, so how about some ointment?" What he did was he cured it, and then he slept with her again, and he got it a second time. So here's the thing. Even someone as brilliant and hilarious as Chris Rock can do some stupid shit. We are all human. I'm not interested in perfection. I don't strive to be perfect. I actually strive to be as human as possible. I want my show to feel accessible. I want my show to feel personal. I want my show to feel like me. I want people to feel like they are forming a connection with me and a relationship with me that is ongoing and intimate and real. And so that is a goal of the show, and that has been that pivot of trying to figure out what is the thing that people are responding to has continually gone on. I'm always rethinking, like, does this show still work for me? Does the show still work for the audience? Should these things go away? Don't get locked in a plan. Let your show, it should be an evolving, growing animal, and it should always be getting, I don't know if it's always getting better, let's just say hopefully it gets more interesting. That should be your goal. And I do want to make a corollary about failure, which is I also think, contrary to Lou, that even quitting is not failing if you do this for a while and you find it not satisfying. Don't do something that's not satisfying, that also doesn't pay, that also nobody's listening to. That is a fail. If you don't love it anymore, come up with a new show, or go work on your buddy's show, or go do some shit that pays money. Yeah, or, there's lots of stuff. Just take up knitting. I always look for something unexpected in my shows. I'm always searching for the thing that I didn't plan for. As a result, I don't do a lot of research about my guests. When they come in, I just say, hey, we're going to talk, and I have no plan, and we're going to see where this goes. And as a result, I typically get stories out of them that they have never told before. I don't know if anybody's seen, there's this really great Vin Diesel mashup of him telling a story. He's promoting, I think maybe Fast 6, and he does 7 or 8 talk shows, and on every talk show he goes, oh, okay, wait, let me see if I can remember this story. Oh, hold on a minute. And then he tells the same fucking story 7 times. Same way, same inflections. That's a trap that anybody can get into when they give a lot of interviews. And so I really try to break that. I really try to break people's nature, break the format, break my own format, and try to get in a way. And I will stop people and go, hey, I'm sorry, I want to go back, or hey, I'm an idiot, can you explain that again? I'm not afraid to look silly and stupid, and because of that, hopefully it's disarming for my guests, or they go away and block my number. That's possible. So I think that helps me find a way to be surprised and delighted by my shows, and hopefully my guests are surprised and delighted as well. And then hopefully my listeners are surprised and delighted. A little adjunct to that about being surprised and delighted and about pivoting is that I just wanted to make a little show. I just wanted to make a little podcast. I was like, hey, you guys, come over my house, hang out. And a fan suggested that I do a listener question show where I would answer questions at the end of the season. So the very first year I said, okay, write in your letters all year, and then I'll read them all at the end of the year and I'll answer your questions. And that's turned into a show that I thought was just gonna be a series of variations on who's a better kisser, Joey or Ross. But what that has turned into is the most emotional show of the year. I cry every single year. Because inevitably I get a letter where someone says something like, I was going through a terrible breakup and your show helped me get through it. Or I had a guy who said, I'm white and my girlfriend's Asian and her parents don't agree that we should be together, and I don't have a car, and so I have to walk 2.5 hours over to her apartment every day, and I listen to your podcast there and back, and you're a part of our relationship now. Or a guy one year who said, I know you love video games, and my mom was dying of cancer last year, and what we did together was play video games and listen to your podcast before she died. You don't know what effect your show is going to have on other people. You can't know. It's a living thing. It's a piece of shitty homemade art. It's the ashtray with the broken inside. It's the elephant lamp that won't light when you pull the trunk. You can't know how somebody's going to respond to what you do. So all you can do is just try to do your best work and then listen when people tell you what your show is to them. Every few weeks, I'm like, I can't do this anymore. This is killing me. And then I get a letter like that. And that keeps me making this show. So the last thing I would say is that, and I think maybe you've heard this probably all weekend, is to be brave. To be really brave, and to be brave enough to believe that you can do something better than you think you can, and more interesting than you think you can, more personal than you think you can. Be brave enough to push yourself a little bit past your comfort zone. Be brave enough to fail. Be brave enough to post a really crappy show. And then be brave enough the next week to say, hey guys, last week sucked. I'm going to do better. Because this thing is yours. And it's the reason I did this was because I wanted some, people always go, you have 15 jobs, why? Why are you doing this to yourself? And I go, well, because this is the only thing that is mine. This is mine. And so it's going to be the purest expression of what I want to make every single week. It's going to be flawed and messy, and the audio is never going to be as good as the guy who's got the big soundboard and the huge staff. But it's mine. So I encourage you to embrace the risk of making something that is purely and positively and intimately yours. I have 10 minutes, maybe 15. So if anybody wants to ask a question, feel free. If you don't have a question, I will go back and start drinking. So no pressure. But if you do have a question, I'm happy to answer any question that you have. And the answer is that Joy was a better kisser than Ross. You're dying to know. You can't take it, can you? Yes. Well, you could tell because he was so slutty. If you don't have a question, that's fine. Yes, go ahead.
Can I go with you to have a drink after this?
I wish that you could. I'm actually going to be drinking in the car on the way to the airport. I have to go back to LA. I know, right? Next podcast movement. Go ahead, sweets.
Actually, I'm an app game developer, so I would love to give you my information for playing my app games. But also, I'm a huge fan because, one, you made history by being on Friends. I want to thank you for that.
Oh, thank you. Well, you can thank them for that, because it wasn't like I was like, so guys, I'd like to be on Friends. They're like, come on in. That's not how it went, but thank you. Thank you very much.
But how hard was it for you just to say, you know what, I'm going to do something a little bit different from being on the talk and doing other things, and from comedy to being on your show? Because even though I've seen you on other things, listening to you on your podcast, it seems like that is you, and I love that about that. So how hard was that for you to just kind of like, I'm just going to be me, and if it hurts my career, I'm cool with that, because you're really cool.
When I first launched the podcast, I wasn't on the talk. I was just doing Archer, and I was kind of between gigs, and so that was another reason why I had some time, I had some bandwidth then to start a show. The question was how you heard it, everybody heard it, okay, good. But when I got on the talk, I remember having a conversation with them about, like, I need you guys to know, like, who I am in my other life, and that I'm not going to change that to do this job. And they were very comfortable with that. And there have been times when I've said stuff on the podcast, I was like, man, if they chop this up and make it into an ad, I'll never be able to run for president. Just close your eyes and point at any minute of my podcast, and I'm just off the ballot. But I think why people do love this show is because I am just myself on it, and honestly, I kind of don't know any other way to be. I'm lucky. I look young, but I'm like 70. And I'm just too tired. Do you know what I mean? I'm just too tired to be cute. You know what I mean? I didn't put my hair on today. I'm too tired. I just can't do it anymore. But I think the people that I admire are the people that are truly authentic. And I think as long as you're not being unkind, or as long as you're not being cruel, everything else is fair game. This is such a finite amount of time we have on the planet, man. You got to just do your shit. You got to do it. And that's why I named the speech "No Apologies." Really quickly, at the end of my show, for a long time, I had this thing called the Apologia, where I would apologize for all the potentially combustible things I might have said. At the beginning, I was like, I'm sure somebody's gonna be mad about this, and it was kind of just as a joke. But I did worry very much early on that people were gonna be like, you hate puppies, or you eat babies, and I was like, I don't eat what? So since then, I almost never apologize, because I don't think I have to. One more question before here we go.
Hey,
There's somebody
Aisha.
in the back.
So I'm Lex Friedman from Midroll. We actually help you with your ads.
Yes, you
and
do.
video.
Hi.
Hi.
At the Midroll.
And so,
the Midroll is my agency of record.
What?
Yes.
So the question, so you eventually, partnered with us to help you on the ad side. But like you said, you still do everything else on the show independently. You record it yourself, you mix it yourself, you post it yourself. And now that you've established it, where it's your show and your voice and it's your own, why don't you bring in more help to alleviate some of that? I'm just curious on the motivation to say, I'm going to keep doing all of the hard stuff myself too, now that you've established your own tone and voice on the show. Well,
it's a very good question. Several answers. I hate people. That's the first thing. No, I love people. I don't want to manage. I don't want to manage anybody. Like right now, I could post the show at 2 a.m. on a Monday or at 1 p.m. on Sunday, and I don't have to get it to my engineer on their schedule so that they can, you know what I mean? And that flexibility, being able to post from a hotel room when I'm on the road, or from a hotel room when I'm on the road, which is most of where I post the show from, just gives me like a flexibility for the rest of my life. So that's the real reason. I mean, it probably would be easier, but I just don't want to deal with more human beings than I already do. I mean, I love y'all, but that's really it. I don't want to add another body. And I think I also am somebody who wants to try to be a nice person to interact with. And the people that already work for me barely see me. My assistant's like, I'd like a minute. If I could have it. Like he does it, he's like, I'd like a meeting. I was like, we can meet in November. Just get my coffee. So I'd like to be a better mentor to him, and if I add another person, the people that already need my time won't get it. One more question. We can do one more. Bravery. Here comes James. James is so young and beautiful and not dead.
You, baby, it's that water I've been drinking out there in Florida.
Brought you back from the dead, didn't it, James?
Oh, baby, tell you.
Okay, this might be a strange question, but
this is happening. This is happening right now. Let's do it. Let's do it together.
Well, so many people are trying to simplify. Now, everybody's trying to simplify their lives. I'm just speaking for myself and many other people that I know. Several times throughout this, you talked about how busy you are and how many you've got your eggs in so many different baskets. So, other than money, why do you do it?
Because I'm a workaholic. I'm literally a clinical. People ask us a lot, like, "Are you okay?" I'm like, "No, I'm a clinical workaholic. It's not a joke. It's not like, haha, I like to work." I'm like, "I need help. Help me." But here's what I will say. I'll say two things. My life, people operate differently. Their brains operate differently. I am most effective under duress. So if I have one thing to do, I'll get it to you in a few weeks. If I have 9 things to do, I'll get them done by morning. That's just how I move. I'm happiest when I have that penny taste of panic in my mouth. That's when I know I'm alive. So that's the first thing. That's my own therapeutic reasons that why I do it, and I really do need therapy. But the other overarching kind of huggy buggy greeting card reason is because I feel very keenly, and maybe I always have, that life is very short, and I just don't want. I want to pursue every single thing I'm compelled by. Without fear. I don't care if I fail. I'm just more, for me, the only failure is not trying or looking back and wishing I had. And so with the podcast, like I said, I just jumped in. I didn't know what I was doing, but that was a part of the journey for me. And I feel like every single day I'm waking up and I'm thinking, God, I'm like an awful like Pinterest fucking like personal trainer photo. But I just feel like I'll rest when I'm dead. That's really how I feel. I feel like you've got one life. Go ham. For the old people and the Caucasians, ham is an acronym for hard as a motherfucker. But that is really my life philosophy. And ham for me may not be ham for you, right? Like ham for me is I slept 2 hours last night. That's not everybody's jam. But what I do feel like what I hate hearing, not in a I'm repulsed way, but in a I wish better things for you way, is when people say, I really want to do this, but. You know what I mean? I wish I could, but. I want to be a comedian, but I'm afraid I'm going to fail. I want to be a writer, but I'm afraid you are going to fail. That's a prerequisite. That is a stipulation. You will fail. The people who are winning just got up again. That's it. That's the only fucking secret. And so for me, when something crosses my desk, if I find it interesting, I just do it, and I just see how it goes. I might lose a finger today. Okay, still got 9 left. I have to wrap it up, so I'll leave you a little quote. It's one of my favorite quotes, and it might be instructive to your question. And I think it's one of my. God, I'm turning into my dad. My dad has like a million sayings. I'm definitely turning into all I need is a mustache, and I'll be Action Jackson. But. One of my favorite quotes is from the great philosopher Rocky Balboa. And it goes like this. It's not how hard you hit. It's how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward. It was really lovely talking with you. Have a great weekend.
In 2016, Podcast Movement is hitting the road as we make our way to the Windy City. Spend some of your summer with us at the beautiful Hyatt Regency in Chicago, Illinois. Join us July 6th through the 8th as Podcast Movement does it bigger and better than ever. Tickets go on sale this December. We'll once again have amazing featured speakers and over 1,000 of your best podcaster friends. All that's missing is you. Register today, and we'll see you in Chicago.